Alexander Wolf here in Bend, Oregon, and today we flew the Epic 1000. Today is Epic demo day, and we're going to be flying this little guy up to 25,000 feet and benchmarking. If you're used to a TBM, it should be a worthy comparison. So the walk around was fairly simple. Nothing really earth-shattering on pre-flight. One feature that was nice to see was the split inlet duct, and what that allowed was for the inertial separator to be mounted much higher on the engine to reduce the risk of fodding the motor. The assigned pilot that I had was a former Marine aviator that drove Hornets, and we all got along very nicely. My guy in the back, or ballast, was another Marine, and he was solely responsible for the camera work of the pilot and myself. Ergonomically, the cockpit was very thoughtfully laid out. I would used to have to grease myself to get into a TBM. I didn't have that experience getting up front in this. All the major controls for starting and configuring the aircraft were on the pilot side, left side, and it was a simple flow from left to right, starting on the top row. The Garmin in this particular iteration is not the latest and greatest, but also doesn't need to be. I think the GX version has the G1000 NXI. I'm sure the more modern versions will come in due course.
Start is left to right. Nice and easy. Checking our battery dip. It's good. Get above 12. I usually go for about 16. Turning the oil pressure. All that good stuff. Start, batteries off, go left to right on the pre-taxi switches, sets on.
Taxiing was pretty much a non-event. You had a linked steerage for about 15 degrees of travel. If you tapped on the brakes, you can get up to 60 degrees of travel in free caster mode. You could turn it around within its wingspan in the free caster mode, which is extremely useful for close taxi operations. The takeoff was brisk. Unlike the TBM, you do not really have to worry about your torque. There is a torque limiter, so you just basically throttle slam it and make sure you got that right rudder in. And you're pitching for about 12 degrees nose up, and you'll get about 3,000 feet a minute right out the gate. The way we were configured, with three of us on board and a full bag of gas, we were basically seeing 3,000 feet a minute, more or less sustained. You get the full throttle operation below 10,000 feet for about 5 minutes, and then you put it into about 83% of torque, which is your max continuous. So our test profile had us going up to about 25,000 feet. Figured that was a nice happy medium between going all the way to 34,000 feet. And we saw about 330 knots on around 75 gallons an hour at 25,000 feet. If I looked at the AFM, you would still get the 330 knots at 34,000 feet, and it would be about 55 gallons per hour. we started off with a bunch of steep turns to the left and to the right, 45 degrees a roll, and gradually we increased it to about 60 degrees of bank. So it has very neutral stability in both the pitch and roll axis. It'll do about 70 degrees rate of roll per second, which is pretty brisk, but if you just release the controls, it'll stay there. We also did some slow flight with full flaps, half flaps, and in the clean configuration. And we took that all the way to the stick shaker. And it was a very nice flying aircraft in all three configurations. No sign of a wing drop or wanting to drop a wing in any particular direction. It was very neutrally balanced. the RTB, we decided to load up the RNAV 16 and then plan on a circle to 3-4 back in Bend. And we just did our typical approach with the procedure turn, just to see the type of airspeeds and configurations we would need to be in. Now, Bend is a bit of a rodeo clown show in terms of traffic. You've got helicopter traffic with students, you've got glider tows with Pawnees, you've got some light jet traffic, and other turboprops are mixing up as well. And today was no exception. We had all those things to experience. In our case, we had the Vision Jet that was on about a 7-mile final, and we utilized our ability to descend and slow rapidly to get in and make the runway and clear before he was able to get down. We'd end up coming in the pattern at about 150, drop the gear below 150, and do our downwind basically 120. More or less SR22 speeds for our configuration. So if you're used to flying the TBM or the Pilatus, you have gobs of beta, once you get wheels on the deck. And that's extremely helpful for minimizing your rollout length, especially when you're trying to sequence yourself between faster traffic. And our friendly little Cirrus jet came in a couple minutes after we touched down right there. So if you remember earlier, the free caster nose gear really comes in handy, especially when you're trying to maneuver in tight quarters. And you just step on that brake, and that nose goes over center and gives you access to the 60 degrees of nose swivel. And then when you're ready to straighten out, just tap the opposite brake, and nose comes back into center for the 15 degrees left and right. And it's quite handy for maneuvering on tight ramps. So what I would think, it basically destroys a TBM outright in every category, and the Cirrus jet as well. It does hot and high beautifully. There's not any ODPs I can think of that it won't comply with, except for maybe like Eagle Colorado, but you need to be the space shuttle to comply with that, so it doesn't really count. The cabin comfort is exemplary. That's the only way I could describe it. You feel like you're wearing the aircraft instead of shoehorning yourself into it. The ergonomics are far superior to the TBM. Being able to take 4 people with full gas 1,300 miles is a huge benefit. And it's a platform that is still early in its maturity, but it has a lot of room for further expansion. Unlike the TBM, which is now 30 years old and you can't put a bigger motor on it, so that design has reached its limitations. The ability to operate with a payload out of an airfield which is hot and high and still make the ODP is huge. A pure jet out of, let's say, Salida in Colorado would not be faring very well versus really a turboprop of any type. And it opens up a lot more options in terms of airports that you can utilize over a pure jet. I would not, for instance, feel comfortable flying a pure jet into Aspen, especially in the light jet category. But I'd have no qualms about taking a turboprop any day of the week. So I flew the Epic 1000 this morning, all the way up to flight level 250. It is a amazing performing aircraft.